Good afternoon, property investors, and welcome to the first of many of these facilities management and utilities management live sessions, Facebook session and YouTube sessions. So I think be sure to obviously subscribe and make sure you join these every second day. So, or should I say every fortnight? So we'll do it every 2 weeks. And we'll have these facilities management, utilities management live sessions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage everyone, as you coming in, feel free to pop some comments into the chats, etc. And if you've got any questions during the sessions, by all means, please ask your questions. If you have any thoughts or questions you want for future live sessions, then please drop your questions into the chats, even if it's after the actual live session and you're watching this as a recording later. It gives us the opportunity to understand exactly what you are after from your side. So jumping into it, we're in this fantastic space where we were starting to bring more value to all of our property investors inside the community. And the idea here is to continue to pour education into all of you. So as you are taking the most advantage of this journey that you're on, this wealth generating journey that you're on, one of the legs around property ownership is this idea of the ongoing maintenance. So we're going to bulk it into a more formal framework and focus on the facilities management of your properties. So what's nice about that is we want to start unpacking and going on with the journey that continues into the future. I always like to sort of refer to property as not this get rich quick program, but rather a wealth generation journey. And for any wealth, we're not thinking about it being instant. We're thinking about it being a long-term journey. So welcome to all of you who are joining us for this. Anyone who is watching the recording of this, as I said earlier, feel free to drop questions. And if you are watching the recording, feel free to pop questions into the comments in the future. So jumping into this, today's session is really going to be an introduction to what we're going to go through on these facilities management and utilities management discussions. And I'd like to introduce it from a perspective of what we're going to cover throughout the journey. And we're potentially not going to stick to this exact agenda or focus, but it gives us the silos that we're going to be working in. And specifically, there's two elements of facilities management. It's your administration side of things, and then it's your building operations, property operations. So for me, it's really important for us to think of these as departments that we really do have to focus on and make sure that we dial them in perfectly in order to have a holistic property management program. And I say that from a property management perspective because you're not going to just put all the responsibility of the property management onto your rental agent, because you are guaranteed to miss stuff. Things are guaranteed to go wrong on your properties. So you need to take ownership of responsibilities on your properties. And that is about maximizing the success of your properties. So we talk about facilities management, we talk about utilities management. Those are huge portions of your property journey, and they're what keep your property alive and thriving for generations of their lifespan. I want to sort of reiterate that what we will do is we'll go through a lot of these topics over the next couple of months. And again, those of you who are joining us live, feel free to drop any questions into the comments. Those of you who are watching this, definitely pop into the comments any questions that you may have and any topics that you want us to focus on and give specific details around. Okay, so this session isn't going to be a very long session, and I'd like to get one to start really opening their mind to thinking about your property journey as having started through your education process, but then the next level is how to go into sort of your long-term journey. So then we move from your purchase process to what we would bulk into a maintenance program going forward. So I think that's one side of, well, that's an important element to look at. Going through these topics, obviously, just high level, it is this administration side, and on the administration side, you have the sort of focus on how I like to think of our property is your property is a business. So whether you've got one rental property, it's a business. If you've got 20, 30, 100, 1,000 properties, you've got to think of it as a business. So starting off with one property, start and put the systems into place to run it as a business. So on the administration side, the backbone to any business is your financial management, and that covers your bookkeeping, your accounting, your record keeping, etc. So we're going to go through a lot of that as we go on this journey. I've highlighted items like measuring, testing and measuring, and that's a big one for me in the facilities management space, is what gets measured gets done, or what gets measured matters. As an example, if you are paying attention to your consumption of water and electricity, it gives you the ability to make sure that you aren't losing money in that space where there's leaks. Okay, and maybe I'll touch on it a little bit later around solutions for your utility management. And then you go through, as you're building the business side of it, the administration side of your property, you want to have things like all in place. So it's a start, whether it's when you're at the bigger scale, the larger scale, and you've got multiple 1,000 properties, you're going to have a huge admin staff managing your properties and managing that business. And down to your first property, if it's a multi-let and you've got a caretaker on that property, there is a staff or people management element of it as a direct HR portion. But then you've also got people from your tenants' perspective or your agents, and learning how to manage people is such an important element of running this business. Your tenants are ultimately your clients, and you want to keep your tenants happy. So I think that's super important. We'll run through your risk mitigation, so things like insurance, public liability insurance, etc., emergency planning. If something goes wrong, are you ready for that? And then obviously continuous improvement elements. So what I'm going to ask you to do is maybe just give me a minute. The garden services are coming through. I'm going to actually get them to hold on a second, and I'll jump straight back in here. Very sorry about that. Murphy's Law, that's what happens. And one of the elements of property management is your gardening, etc. So these things happen, properties are live, they're not happening in the background and just ticking over. So there's always something going on. So I managed to just ask them to give me a couple of minutes on the gardening. They were coming past with the weed eater. So picking up where I was on that, the emergency planning, the continuous improvement. And that continuous improvement is such an important one. And that sort of rolls me into the building management side, the building operations side. When we look at maintenance, etc., I want you guys to make sure that you're constantly aware of the fact that you need to focus on continuous improvements on your property. We never want to get to the space where we turn into slumlords. So you want to think, again, we come back to this wealth generation journey. This is a long-term journey. So every single month, every single year, you need to be doing something that's going to improve your property. So it obviously improves the equity in the property, but it also improves the service that you bring to your client, the tenants on the properties. If you increase the value that they receive, naturally you can increase the value that they pay. So look at that as being such an important part of your journey on your facilities management, continuous improvement side. Then touching on the topics that we'll deal with on the building operations side is we've obviously got the capital upgrades, and that's important. I've separated capital upgrades and maintenance on purpose because from a tax perspective, we need to be aware of that. And again, tax perspective, this is a business. We need to think of what a business would go through. So tax is an important element of your ownership journey. So from a tax perspective, there's certain things you can do from a capital upgrades perspective versus things you can do on a maintenance side. So we'll touch on that a little bit deeper as we go through things. And then in the maintenance space, it's planned maintenance because you have to have a plan. You can't rely on being reactive all the time. Unfortunately, there are emergencies where you have to be reactive. So what have you got in place to be able to deal with emergencies so you can react and you can continue to give your tenants the service they need, that roof over their head, electricity, water in the taps, etc. And then the big one that I touch on is budgets. So when we're going through our buying process of finding and sourcing a property, we go through the numbers we'll be aware of from your fundamentals and from any training that you've had in the SAPIN environment or in the Property Academy side. So if you do the fundamentals course, we do the numbers, and part of that, we're aware of the fact that you have to budget for maintenance. But what gets tempting for a lot of landlords is they don't actually spend the budget. So I want to sort of reinforce, if you've got a budget, put it into a plan and use that budget towards the continuous improvement of your property. Utilities then, if we touch on utilities, I'll touch a little bit later on the fact that there are such great solutions for managing your utilities. Bygone are the days where you have to do things manually, send your agent out there, your rental management or your caretaker to take readings, send through, put that into an invoice, send it through to the tenant, beg the tenant to pay for the utilities they've used. They're great prepaid options that solve a lot of issues around your utilities management. Then the next on my list is cleaning. So there's something that as landlords we tend to neglect. We'll normally go in when we've got a transition of tenants and we'll panic and do like a big clean. So I want you guys to start bearing in mind that there's value from a maintenance perspective in doing cleans throughout the year. So whether it's every quarter, whether it's mid-year, half-yearly, etc., but something that you should be thinking of, and that will include like cleaning in the unit, and you would do like obviously the responsibility on the general cleaning is your tenant side, but you've got to do deep cleans of certain things. So whether it's roof upkeep, whether it's paving, etc., and these again are things that increase the value of your property, that make your tenant appreciate the property more, and when they appreciate the property more, they're willing to pay more when it comes time to increase their rent. And then we look at things like landscaping. So obviously we don't want to just dump tenants in there. It's nice for them to be responsible for cutting the grass, but we are again thinking of this asset as something that needs to continuously improve, and you need to put some money into landscaping and improving the appearance of your property. Again, happy tenant. And then also if you get to the point where the internal rate of return on the property would make more sense to sell, then you've got more equity in that property. I'm going to take my face away because I'm sure it's in the way of the the solution around utilities before we wrap up here. And I want to sort of reiterate the fact that SAPIN as a community is looking at finding solutions for everyone in our sort of community, in a membership space, to make sure that you have the tools at your disposal. So you'll see within the SAPIN Connect space, there's so many great affiliate partners that you guys can take advantage of, because we've collectively created relationships with these partners, and those partners are looking after our members very well. So I really do encourage you guys, jump onto the SAPIN webpage, the SAPIN Connect webpage, and have a look at what options are out there for affiliates, people that we have relationships with and that our members have been using, and we continue to review the service that they're receiving from these affiliates. So likewise, SAPIN-Prepaid is one of our affiliates from the SAPIN Connect space. And I want to encourage people to start just paying attention to what's happening in the SAPIN-Prepaid space, because for us, it again comes down to education. What I've experienced in my journey as a property coach, as a property investor, is that when I want something, I tend to just Google it at the last minute. Whereas we want to try and reinforce this idea that you are receiving the education and the information so that when it is time to use that, you already have the solutions at hand. So for us, SAPIN-Prepaid is a fantastic solution for all of you because of the fact that it gives you a tested solution to managing your utilities. And the prepaid meter side of management of utilities, I can't praise it enough, because in the past, what you would do is you either give your tenants a lease that is inclusive of water and or lights. And what happens is when something's for free, people don't respect it. So, or you're doing the post-charge solution where you are sending an invoice at the end of the month and calculating manually what the tenants consume during the month. And what often happens in that space is tenants get surprised by these bills, or they contest it. So maybe you give them a high water bill, suddenly they go, no, but your tap, Mr. Landlord, is leaking. I'm not paying for it. You must pay for that, and you must come fix the tap. So people don't respect utilities when they're paying post or after the fact, but when they pay for it upfront, so when they pay in a prepaid situation, they are a lot more respectful of their utilities. And what they then tend to do is, if I know I'm spending 100 Rand on water, I want that 100 Rand to last as long as possible, so I close all the taps. If the toilet is leaking, I make sure I report that to the maintenance team so they can have it repaired. So it's just that shift in mentality that tenants have when they are paying upfront. So I'm going to encourage people to pay attention to what's happening as we start to educate everyone a little bit more around prepaid, and specifically get involved. If you have any questions, in the description below, there's contacts for SAPIN-Prepaid through the SAPIN Connect page, or you can reach out to me directly. So I think that's something awesome to cover, and I think the more we go through this utilities management journey, we're going to cover the facilities side, we're going to cover the utilities side, because it all works together. We need to look at our property as a full business package that we want to dial in to perfection. I look forward to doing these sessions more often in the future. And again, join us every 2 weeks on a Thursday at 2 o'clock. We'll have these sessions. We'll go through the facilities management, the utilities management, and I'll see you all there. Thank you very much.